Hi everyone! You may remember from my top 5 OpenRCT2 plugins video where I talked about the Ride Vehicle Editor plugin made by Bassi. This plugin allows you to make all kinds of modifications to any ride vehicle in your park. I'm excited to announce that a major new version of this plugin was recently released. This update adds a few exciting and powerful features to make hacking ride vehicles even easier. In this video, I'll explain how you can use this plugin and show off a few cool new things it can do. To get started, download the plugin from one of the links in this video's description. You should receive a JS file or a zip file with the JS file inside of it. Either way, put the JS file in the plugin folder of your OpenRCT2 installation. If you're not sure where that folder is, go to the game's main menu, click the Game Tools button on the right, then click Open Custom Content folder. You should see the plugins folder from there. Then, once you're in a game, you can find the plugin by selecting it from the menu under the Map button. Note that this version of the plugin is only compatible with OpenRCT2 version 0.4.4 or later, so make sure you've updated to at least that version first. There's a link to the most recent version of OpenRCT2 in this video's description. There's a lot you can do from the main plugin window, so it might seem a little overwhelming at first, but don't worry, we'll go over all these sections in more detail. Before we can do anything, we need to select a ride vehicle to edit. One way is to use the drop-downs at the top of the window to pick any ride on your map. Then you can pick any of its trains and any of that train's vehicles. Alternatively, if you can already see the vehicle you want, you can use the eyedropper tool to select it directly. Now that we found a vehicle to edit, the viewport will follow it around so we can always keep an eye on how the changes we make affect the ride. You can also click the locate button on the left to snap the main camera to the vehicle's current position. Under the visual section of the plugin, you can change the appearance of any vehicle on your ride. The type dropdown lets you change the selected car to be of any type as long as it's available on your map. You can mix and match any type of car here, so get creative. One thing to be aware of is that this can drastically change the behavior of your ride, since different vehicle types have different mass. Also, powered versus unpowered vehicles also mess with the speed of your train, so be careful if you're picking something like sports cars or train engines. We'll talk more about powered vehicles later. Below the type dropdown, you can select the variant if the ride supports it. Many ride vehicles have different variants for different aesthetic purposes. For example, take the front cars on the Twister Coaster train, which is variant 1. It doesn't have seats, but it still acts as its own individual car that behaves just like all the rest. If you wanted to, you could turn it from variant 1 to variant 0 and it will look and behave like a normal car with seats. Some vehicle types, like Wild Mouse cars, have invisible variants. A wooden Wild Mouse car is actually 3 cars. The peeps sit in the middle one, while the first and last are invisible. I believe that this setup was originally needed in vanilla RCT2 to control door scenery, although they aren't really needed in OpenRCT2 anymore. Regardless, we can use the Ride Vehicle Editor to create these invisible cars wherever we like, which is handy for all sorts of things. For example, when making certain shoestringing hacks like this Larson Looper, you might need a car to be above ground but don't want the player to see it. Here, I've used an invisible Ladybird train, so that when the control vehicle goes above ground, it's still not visible to the player. Additionally, there's also the option on some trains to have a green square variant. These look just like tiny squares with the same color and texture as grass, and might be really hard to see. Like the invisible cars, these weren't originally meant to be used by players, and they might behave a bit strangely, but you still might find some creative uses for them. Finally, we have controls to change the colors of your vehicle. This is pretty self-explanatory, but note that you can change all 3 colors, even if the vehicle you've selected doesn't support that many colors. This is a nice improvement over using the standard in-game ride window, which might not let you change all the colors if you change the vehicle type. Next, we can edit the position of any vehicle using the tools in the positioning section. Track progress refers to the distance that the vehicle has traveled across the piece of track that it is currently positioned on. This number starts at 0, but its maximum depends on how long that piece of track is. Spacing refers to the distance between one car and the car in front of it. This is a calculated value, which makes it easier to tell exactly how far apart your cars are from each other for precision placement. It's new for this version of the plugin and can be very handy. For both of these values, you can increase or decrease them to push the vehicle to anywhere along the ride's layout. You can spread out the cars here as much as you like, but note that it probably will have some weird effects on a ride that's in motion, so be careful not to blow anyone up. Next, you can use the X, Y, and Z controls to directly adjust the coordinates of a ride vehicle. These are only available if a train is stopped, and you can use it to put a vehicle literally wherever you like. But be careful, if the train starts to move again, for example, if you put it in test mode, the vehicle will snap back to its original position. So this is going to mostly just be useful for decoration. While we're on the subject of positioning, I also wanted to mention the Move Vehicle tool on the left side of the window. This will allow you to grab any vehicle at rest and drag it around to anywhere on the map instantly. Again, this only works as long as the train doesn't move, but it definitely could come in handy for some quick decorations. We can edit a few other random things in the properties section. The seats tool allows you to edit the maximum number of peeps a vehicle will hold. You can set this to 0 if you don't want to have any peeps in a vehicle, for example, an underground control car for a shoestring, or crank it up to really cram your rides full. Remember, the more peeps are in a car, the heavier it gets, so be on the lookout for unwanted effects on your ride's behavior. We can also adjust the mass of the car itself directly. Heavier cars have more inertia, so they'll gain and lose speed more slowly. I don't usually have any need to mess with this value, and it will automatically adjust based on the peeps in the vehicle as well. But for some finicky shoestrings, it might be necessary to tweak. Finally, there are controls for a vehicle's acceleration and maximum speed. These only apply to powered vehicles, such as the vehicles for the car ride, monorail, and miniature railroad. Additionally, they only apply if the powered vehicle is the first one in the train, as the first vehicle is the one that drives everything. Increasing acceleration causes the vehicle to speed up to its maximum speed faster. There are all kinds of fun things you can do with powered vehicles. A simple example is to make traffic out of sports cars. Turn up the maximum speed to have your vehicles drive as fast as road traffic. For any of these controls we've discussed so far that require a number, it can be really tedious to increment them one by one. For example, if you're moving vehicles around a long track to make some parked cars, it can take ages when moving them one bit at a time. Increasing the multiplier to 10 or 100 can save you a lot of time. One of the new features introduced in version 2 is the ability to synchronize effects across different vehicles on your ride. If your ride has a lot of vehicles or a lot of trains, it can be tedious and time-consuming to make the same changes to each one over and over again. Instead, we can now set the properties for the single selected car and then automatically apply those changes elsewhere. For example, if we want to turn the first car of each train a different color, you can change the drop-down to same vehicle number on all trains, change the color, then click Apply. Alternatively, click Synchronize to immediately apply each change as you make it. This simple tool can have some very powerful effects. For example, the spacing value we discussed earlier can spread out all of the vehicles on your train at once. Select the second vehicle in a train, select following vehicles on this train, enable Synchronize, and increase the spacing value. You'll see all of the vehicles spread out in an even pattern. This can be really useful in a number of situations. For example, if you're making a shoestring merry-go-round and find a gap in your train, this technique can automatically fix the spacing and apply it evenly in one single action. One new extra feature is the Edit Ride window. It doesn't really have anything to do with ride vehicles, but it has a couple handy features nonetheless. You can use it to manually set and lock your ride statistics, which might be handy if your peeps aren't riding it for some reason. You can also adjust the date of the ride's construction, make it indestructible, or toggle whether it's a custom ride. This affects if it's eligible for counting towards the Best Custom Designed Rides award. Another fun improvement is that, with version 2 of the plugin, you can now use it in multiplayer games. It takes a bit more setup than usual. If you're the person hosting, ensure you have the plugin installed on the server itself, in the plugins folder, like we mentioned at the start of the video. Then, anyone connecting to your server will automatically get the plugin distributed to them. Any player with the ride properties for a mission will be able to use any of the plugin's features. And that about does it for all the features in the new Ride Vehicle Editor plugin. While these individual features themselves may seem simple on the surface, they really open a lot of creative space to do some unique and interesting things. I hope this video has helped to make vehicle hacking a little less intimidating, and I encourage everyone to play around with this plugin and try out some new techniques. There's an infinite amount of things you can do with it, and we barely scratched the surface here. As I mentioned earlier, you can download the Ride Vehicle Editor from GitHub or the OpenRCT2 plugin repository. I've included links to both in the description below. You can also use the GitHub repo to submit bug reports and suggestions for new features and enhancements. Many thanks to Bassi for all the hard work on this amazing tool, which has allowed the community to make some really amazing things in OpenRCT2. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.